Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's VR Creator Club with our guest, Elisa, and she will be talking about her experience and publishing a game on the MetaQuest store, which I think that is pretty important to a lot of us. My name is Matt, or Arkin, and I am with Virtual Odyssey VR, and I am the mediator between the VR Creator Club and Banter, and I host these events, and it's kind of a collaboration between all three of us. So we hold these every other week with one speaker every month. In 2 weeks, we'll just have a regular meetup. So a lot of you, I've seen you guys here before, but if you guys are new to Banter, it's a great place to just kind of socialize and hang out. So without any further ado, turning it over to Elisa.
Okay. Well, hi. So I got my game, Falling Space Rocks, published on the Meta Store. It's free, and you can try it out. So I'm going to talk about my experience, what that was like doing that, and also give you some information that'll be useful if you want to do the same. So first, I'll say a couple things about myself. I've been a programmer all my life, and when I was working, I had one Unity project, and then I also took a series of classes on VR that we also worked in Unity for. And so when I was retiring, I decided that I wanted to focus on VR development just because I was so excited about the immersive experiences that I could create. I'd like to say up front what I'll be covering and what I won't be covering. So there's a long list of requirements, and some of them were not applicable to my situation. So I'm going to go over the areas where I have expertise. And also, I'm not going to cover the optional requirements, only the required requirements. Okay. So I thought the process was really hard, but it doesn't have to be. So mainly it was hard for me because I didn't have good information. There's a checklist of requirements that's 62 items long, about half of which I actually had to deal with. And a lot of the requirements, the wording was very vague. So, for example, with the SDKs, they said you have to use a supported SDK. And I'm like, well, which SDK are they talking about, and which ones are supported? So I'll be saying a little bit more about that later. And then the documentation, there was just very little documentation on how to do things. And then I didn't have other professionals to be on a team with me to cover the areas that I didn't have expertise in. So it took me a couple, 3 weeks of some really long days to get my submission through. And their turnaround was really quick. They got me an answer the next day. And there was one requirement I didn't meet. And so I had to go fix that. And then I resubmitted, and at that point, my app got approved. Right now, I'm working on submitting another game. And I find that as I start working on that some of the things that took me days when I was going through it the first time just took like maybe under an hour this time, because this time I know what I'm doing. And so that's what my goal is for this talk, is to give you enough information so you feel like you've been through it before. So you won't have to struggle like I did. And there's the slides that I'm going to present are some of them I have some pretty detailed technical information on them that I can't go over out loud. So I'll encourage you to grab the slides afterwards. They're going to be posted in some different places. All right. So this is the general procedure that you first take a look at the requirements and then compare your app against those requirements. and adjust anything that needs to be adjusted to meet the requirements. Then you can go on the Meta developer website and start, you create a new submission and you start filling in the information about it. It keeps track as you go of what stuff you've filled in and what stuff you haven't. Then you'll have to create a whole bunch of images that the Meta Store uses to advertise your app. And you'll upload those, and you'll upload the app itself. There's some automated checking that goes on. So, for example, if you had an image that was the wrong size, it would flag that right away, and it'll save you some time. You don't have to submit in order to find that out. So they also have this helpful link to a document that goes over the most common reasons for failure. So that's a really good document to go over and make sure you have that stuff checked off. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the different things that you need to do in order to meet those requirements. I'm going to start with how to fill in the information on the website. So basically what you're going to do is come up with the keywords so people can find your app and the description so that people get excited about it. And there's all kinds of little things like that you got to fill in. And then there's content guidelines that you have to meet in that information that you put in about your app, not just in the app yourself. At one point, they'll send you to another website where you'll answer some easy questions, and then you'll get a rating for your app. You'll actually get a set of ratings, one for each of the different rating systems that are used in different countries around the world. And those branding guidelines you have to follow, and mainly that's just about not mentioning or showing other headsets. Then for each of the possible play modes, you have to mark whether you support those or not in your app. And my understanding is that whatever things you say you'll support, they'll actually play your game in those modes. So make sure to test it yourself in those modes and make sure that it's a good experience in all of them. You got to have a website and a privacy policy. And thank you for George Gonzalez for telling me that using Google Docs is good enough as a website. That saved me some trouble. And then I thought the idea of creating a privacy policy was pretty daunting until I realized that ChatGPT was really good at it. So all I did was tell it my information, and it spit out all the different sections I needed. So I just edited a little bit and uploaded that, and that was good enough. Okay. Now talk about some of the things related to development that matter for meeting the requirements. And some of the things just kind of are gimmies. If you're developing against the headset, there's stuff that'll just happen by default that you don't have to worry about. So you'll get the head tracking, for example. You'll get the thing that if they press the button to change their forward orientation, that just works by default. And you won't expect your headset to make phone calls. So you'll be all right there. And then they don't want apps on there that are buggy. They don't want stuff that crashes or hangs. So do a good job on your testing. They don't want apps that lose data, so use the player prefs to store that data on the local device. Check the final size of your build before you upload. And then accessibility, there's a whole section on accessibility, but all of the items are marked as optional. So I'm not going to go into them, but I think the topic is important. So I encourage you to look those over and keep them in mind as you're developing your game. There's one piece of code that you need, and that's that whenever the user does certain things, your app has to pause And you do that by handling these two events. You'll get one of those events whenever they pause or resume. I didn't see the pattern as to which of those events was going to fire, which one of those events were going to fire, depending on what the user did. But as long as you handle both of those events, then everything will work fine. And then there's certain things that your app needs to do when they pause. I don't think stopping the music is required, but I did that because I wanted to demonstrate to the reviewer immediately and unambiguously that I received the event and that I was handling it. Okay, so here's a big topic that doesn't have to be big. So the reason it was big for me is because it was the topic where I found it the hardest to find documentation on. Most of the documentation I saw seemed to assume that I was familiar with Android development outside of Unity, which I wasn't. So I had to do a lot of trial and error to figure out what to do. But now that I've got that figured out, I can go over it, and it's something that won't take very long, as long as you know how to do. So there's stuff that the Android manifest, it's the thing inside your APK that tells the operating system how to handle your app. And there's certain things that Meta requires to be in there and certain things that they require not to be in there. Most of those are handled by Unity settings, but there's some things that you have to take care of using this custom manifest. That's a file, and you put things in it, and that tweaks what comes out in the final manifest. So first I'll talk about the Unity settings. So this is the one that I mentioned a minute ago about the SDKs. So I never did figure out which SDK they were talking about when they said you have to use a supported SDK. So what I did was I looked at all the things that might involve SDKs and made sure that I was using a fairly recent one of each of them. And also that I marked the APIs according to the documentation, which actually had some contradictions in it, but I picked what I thought was right, and it turned out to be something that was acceptable to them. Another Unity setting is you have to have a unique bundle version for any APK that you upload. And then it has to be a release build, not a development build. So that's what that checkbox is about there. That checkbox has to be off when you do a release build. And this is an aside, but some of you may have never used that. Anyway, like you don't never have that checkbox on. And I just wanted to encourage you to use it. It's really, really powerful. If you have that checkbox on, and you have the other checkbox with the script debugging on, you'll be able to have an app that's built and running in your headset and still be able to debug it on the PC in Visual Studio. So you'll be able to set breakpoints. You can examine the values of variables and dig into complex data structures and dump out any information that you want to dump into the immediate window. So again, it's just really powerful, but that has to be off. That has to be turned off when you upload your release build. Then there's another straightforward one, set your install location to auto, and it comes out as 0 in the manifest, and that's what you want. And then there's some things you do to indicate which platforms your app is going to support. And I thought that I had checked all the boxes and done all the things to support the Pro in addition to the Quest 2 and 3. But when the app got up on the store, I noticed that it wasn't listed as supporting the Pro. But I didn't follow up on it. I just thought, well, not many people have that because it's expensive. And then I also came across this interesting piece of information that they said that anything that runs on the Quest 2 also runs on the Quest 3. And I don't have a Quest 3 to test against, so I took their word for it. But if I wanted to charge money for my app, I would have bought or borrowed a Quest 3 to actually test against. Okay. So that's now I've talked about the parts that are controlled by the Unity settings, and now this part is controlled by the custom manifest. There's what Meta doesn't want is for your manifest to request permissions from the device that your app doesn't use. And chances are, if you look in the default manifest that Unity builds, there will be permissions in there that you don't need. So you build this custom manifest to get rid of them. And there's also one other line that you put in that where you have this exclude from recents to true. That's pretty straightforward. So how do you get the custom manifest? There's a box that you check in Unity. When you check that box, it'll create a file in that location. And you fill in information into that file. So you'll need one line for every permission that you want to get rid of, and one line to get the exclude from recents setting correct in there. One other thing I want to mention here, when I was talking a minute ago about script debugging, I learned the hard way that if you remove permission for internet, you won't be able to do the script debugging. Even though you're probably using a cable, I was using a cable for script debugging. If you take off the internet permission, it won't let you do it. So that's just something that you don't want to remove that permission until you're done debugging. After you've got everything set up in there, you rebuild, and then you can check the manifest that's output to make sure that all of the requirements are met in there. And speaking of Unity settings, there's one other one you need here. This one is to make your app a 64-bit app and not a 32-bit app. There are also some other settings that were recommended. Those 3 links are 3 videos that talk about publishing. And they mainly cover the part about using the Meta developer website to fill in your stuff, and they cover stuff about Unity settings. And I think these settings aren't things that are strictly required, but some of them were mentioned by more than one person. So I went along with the crowd on that one. Okay. Next big subject, performance and testing. The first thing that I have listed there was one of those ones where I'm like, well, what do they really mean by that? So I think what they're getting at is they don't want your app to take a long time loading. But the way they said it, I was wondering if the time that it spent in the splash screen counted against you. And I was talking to a couple people about that, and the way I understand it is that, well, yes, that time counts, but the splash screen is head tracked, so you're okay. Biggest thing in performance is to make sure the frame rate is acceptable, and I'll talk about how to test that in just a minute. Also, some people that have a frame rate that's not quite up to where it needs to be might try to reduce the resolution of their apps so that it'll go faster, and they don't want you to reduce it by too much. All right, so how to test performance. So there's several ways of doing this, I know. And I'm going to talk about the one that there are several ways to test frame rate. And I'm just going to go over the one that I used because I thought it was easy and it worked for me. And that's using Logcat. And what that is a window on your PC that in real time spits out line after line that shows the frame rate that's running in the headset. And and here's the instructions there on how to set that up. It's good to have another person to watch that window as you're doing things in the headset. And when you test stuff in the headset. Don't just give the processor easy things to do. Give it things to do that you think require the most computation, that are the most intense, so that it's fair test. All right, good. So you have to have your app signed. And what that is it keeps somebody else from uploading a malware version of your app. It authenticates you and your app to the Metastore. There's some pretty easy to follow instructions in Unity on how to do that. And the main thing is that once you create that key store and the key, that you don't lose it. Because if you do, you're not going to be able to make updates to your own app on the store. Okay. Next big subject, last big subject, are the images that you need to create. That'll be for advertising your app on the store. So I don't have any particular talent with drawing, but I am good at arranging things in Unity nicely. And I can take screenshots of those. So that's what I did. And I recommend creating another copy of your project before you do that, because you don't want to accidentally rearrange your real scene. Also, each of these images are going to be really different sizes and aspect ratios. So they're probably going to require a different arrangement for each one. So you probably want to create separate scenes, a different scene for each one of those arrangements, in case you need to come back to it. And this shows this shows what I'm talking about. So it's easier to see it here in this new app that I'm working on than it is with the rocks. But you can see here on the Hidden Objects app that it's really totally different arrangement that's appropriate for these different aspect ratios. The hardest part is getting the screenshots close to the size that you need for the final image. So if your screenshots aren't pretty close to what the final image needs to be, then once you start cropping and scaling, it's not going to come out right. So it'll probably take you a few tries on your screenshot to get that to work out well. And that's why I recommend also using GIMP. If you don't have Photoshop, it's a free version, and it allows you to work in layers. So the first thing that happens with these layers is you'll download a template from Meta that gives you the exact image size. It also gives you another layer that shows that border area. And that's the area of your image that might get cut off under some circumstances when they display the image. So you want to make sure that your title and anything else, any other critical piece that you want people to see, is within that safe area inside the border. So those are a couple of layers. You can have a separate layer for the screenshots. And that way, if you have a screenshot and you don't like it, you can just swap that out without starting from scratch on the whole image that you're working on. I also used a different layer for my text. So I mentioned before that there was one thing I got dinged on, and this was it, my images. So they told me which requirement I didn't meet, but they didn't tell me why. They didn't tell me what was wrong with it. So I surmised that the problem was that my title wasn't visible enough in my images. So when I redid the text part of the image so that the title was more prominent, then my app got approved. There's two other images you need. You need the icon, and that's the thing that shows in the headset in the user's list of apps. And I think they might be using it for some other things as well. And then you need a logo, which, unlike the other images, needs to be transparent. And it also needs to show up no matter what background, what color background they might use to display it on. So I used a light color, a bright color on the inside and then outlined it in a dark color so it could show either way. Then I'll talk about a movie, the trailer for your app. And this is actually marked as optional. You don't have to have a movie. But I think that for a lot of people, that's what they use to see if they're interested in your app. So I'm going to cover it anyway because I think it's pretty important. Like you really want that. And for the different apps that I'm working on, different approaches made sense for that. So with the action shooter app, it made the most sense to take a whole bunch of video and then look through that for a section to excerpt from it that showed the action that I wanted to show. For the hidden objects app, it made more sense to kind of create a script of things, actions to perform, things that I wanted to show, and then just record myself going through those actions. I have the instructions up there on how to take video. When you take the video, it won't come out in the aspect ratio that they want. And I found this free software called Handbrake for resizing your video. And here are the settings in Handbrake that you need.
Okay.
And then lastly, on the images, you need screenshots taken in the headset. And again, depending on the kind of app that you have, different approaches might make sense. So for the hidden objects app, that's a still scene. So I could just go in there and take whatever shots I wanted to take. But in the action app, it was unlikely that I could take a shot at the exact instant that I wanted to in order to show a particular piece of action. So the way I did that was to go through the frames of the movie, looking for frames that would make a good screenshot. And because of the size that the screenshots has to be, they match the size of the original movie that comes out of the headset. So do that on your original movie, not on your resized movie. So this part was kind of takes a lot of work, and it's kind of a pain, but it's also kind of fun. And I think I can say that about the whole process of doing your submission, that it's kind of a pain, but it can kind of be fun as well. And I hope with this talk that I've given you the information that you need so that it's less of a pain. And the most fun of all is seeing your app in the store. I'm ready to take any questions.
I have one. I don't know.
Megaphoned.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sure.
Awesome. First of all, thank you for doing this. This is amazing information that I tried to look into myself, but as you've already shown, it's a lot.
Definitely.
One question I had was in terms of Meta's support for you. So you said you got dinged. Did you try to? Did you have anyone you were in contact with during the time?
No, it's a black box. There's one place, and when you're filling in the information, that you can send a note to the reviewer if there's something you wanted to explain. Because there's one or two places where they say, in most cases, we require this, but if you have some special circumstance, tell us about it, and it might be okay. So you'd use that box for that. But yeah, no, I don't have a name, anything. It's just you click a button and then it comes back the next day.
Oh, interesting. No wonder it takes some time. Sorry, one more question, if I'm allowed.
Oh, no problem.
How is this compared to, say, releasing, and I don't know if you have experience on this, but like early access or what was it? Playtest, like a playtest app. I don't know if you've...
I don't have experience. The only other place that I've released on was Itch, and there you can just kind of release whatever you want. There is something called release channels. So like alpha and beta, release candidate and real release. And you can use those release channels for your early access. So for example, you can put something in the beta channel and then give people access to test that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right. So there are some things in there that, like I said, there's some things that, I didn't really apply to what I was doing because I wasn't going to charge for the app. I was just going to release it. So I don't have experience with that. But I do know that there are those areas in there. And those other 3 videos that I mentioned that talk about publishing, I think that's covered in it at least one of those too. They go a little bit more into that than I do.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, you answered my questions.
All right, great. Yes?
When you earlier in the slideshow, you were talking about making a duplication of your project. How exactly do you do that?
Oh, okay. So it's just your Unity project is just a folder on your PC. So you duplicate that folder, and then you just you can maybe, I think you can even keep the same name, and then just in the hub, the Unity hub, what you do, you already have your original project listed in there, and then there's a drop down in the hub where you say, I want to add another project off of disk. And then you just browse to that file location, and now that's in the hub, and then you can bring up either of the projects, your original one or the copy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Anyone else got any burning questions?
Will there be a PowerPoint sent or the slides?
One more time?
Yeah, so I can't hear.
Oh. I megaphone him. It takes me a second to get there. So if you guys raise your hands, then I can megaphone you.
Here we go. Yep. Where can we get the slides if they're available?
Okay. Yeah. So I have, I put them up on Google Drive, and you can access them there and download them. And we'll post some links. I'll post in the VR Creator Club. And then, Matt, you were planning to post it in some different places as well.
Yeah, I'm recording on OBS right now, and this recording will go up on the the Virtual Odyssey VR YouTube channel. And in the comments, I'll put it in there, and I'll also just make sure to put it out as many places as possible. Put that video out as many places as possible. So if you see that video, go into the description or the comments, wherever. So I've been doing a lot of different social media, so it kind of jumbles up together. But it should be in the description for the YouTube channel. You should be able to click on it and go to see all of these and be able to at least give viewer access.
Are all of you in the VR Creator Club?
I
need to delete that.
I am as well. I assume some people probably are not.
Okay, because if you're in the club, I'll just go ahead and post that link immediately after the talk, and you'll be able to get there. And also, there's the place that Matthew mentioned.
Yep. If you don't let me ask it, how is it? How is the experience post publishing been? Have you gotten a lot of feedback?
Right. So no, there's an analytics button in there, and I clicked it because I wanted to see how many people downloaded my app, just like you can do in Itch really easily. And it says that I can't see that unless I have 100 users. So I didn't see any other place to look at that. So the only way I know is who's tried it of people that have mentioned it in the club.
I've tried it.
Okay, great.
Sorry, I can contribute to this as well, the analytics side, if you'd like.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Yeah, gotcha. Megaphone.
Okay, testing. Hi, I'm
Yep,
Sean.
good go.
I'm from Hilo Studios. Yeah, and so I guess from what I've seen, my team released a demo a couple months back, and yeah, the analytics side is definitely kind of blocked with that kind of 100 active user limit. Although Meta's update can take I think honestly, like sometimes we get updates like 2 weeks after they're actually relevant, and so it may take some time. I was actually going to ask you on your end. I guess if you run into any kind of, I guess, what's your experience been with like search engine optimization about people actually finding your app once you've published it?
Yeah, I haven't heard from anybody that they, one way or another, if they had trouble finding it. I went into Google and I searched on Metastore falling space rocks and I got my app. So if you knew what you were looking for, then it shouldn't be hard to find. If you were just looking through the store for stuff that you were interested in, I don't know how many people might be using the same keywords that I'm using. I know from the analytics in Itch, they'll actually tell you the links that people came from and what they searched on. So, for example, there were people searching on family friendly, and there were people searching on nonviolent, for example. So I know that that's at least some of what people look for, but I don't have any other information beyond that.
Okay. Thank you.
I did kind of want to chime in on that. That's been something that I've worked on. I don't know if you've seen a lot of my work, but I worked on the Virtual Odyssey Festival this last September, and it was a VR games festival in VR. And one of the things that I've really noticed that it's really hard for smaller studios or smaller games to get noticed in larger algorithms, especially on the MetaQuest store. So maybe not necessarily optimizing your search results will get you attention, but participating in events and social media in interesting ways that will get you noticed will really shoot you to the top of the charts. One of the best examples is Sail VR, ran by Garrett Cook, did a really hard social media push with TikTok, where most of his content isn't necessarily about his game. It's just about gaming in general. But because he got such a big social media following, a lot of people now see his game, and he has, I think I saw a poll on the Sail VR Discord, and he had over 10,000 people like in his polls, which tells me he's getting a lot of user interaction through that.
So. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think most of the people who have tried my app have probably found out about it through the VR Creator Club or in Banter. I also posted on LinkedIn and on Facebook, but I don't know, how many people might have possibly come through from there.
Mm-hmm.
Hope that answered your question.
Yep. Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
Also, if you're looking for more help, I'm looking for a job, so let me know.
That's good.
The problem is the problem is not charging for my app, and then I don't have money to pay developers to make changes to it. You noticed I looked for all free software. Like the GIMP and the Handbrake. It's just all free stuff. The only thing I paid for was my PC. I didn't even pay for the headset. It was a retirement present from my sons. I had experience deploying to the Android phone. I had deployed to my own phone. But the hard part about the phone is that there's so many different form factors. There's all these different screen sizes. So you wonder if your app's going to work okay with all these different screen sizes. So the nice thing about getting the headset was there's just a few of those that it needs to look correctly on.
Yeah, I did want to note that I really appreciate you putting in there the free software. I use the Adobe Suite, so sometimes I don't really think about that. And I got it from a student thing. So I had an extreme discount, and I've been looking for alternatives myself because I'm not going to pay for the Adobe Suite on my own. So that's something that's really useful.
Yeah, some things are only available by subscription too. Like I was interested in paying for Photoshop, but they wouldn't let me just buy it. So I said no. Same way with I'm also using PowerPoint, so I did pay for that as well. I paid for Microsoft Office, and again, I don't pay for the subscription version. I just paid to buy it once.
Yeah. We got about 10 more minutes left of the official event. Does anyone have any other pressing questions? Because we can also just kind of open it up to a more casual, kind of hanging out. You, okay, go ahead.
I have one more. On the getting your game tested by actual players and stuff, what's the easiest way to get other people to test stuff for you?
I think that's part of the social stuff too, that you're going to line up people for that by posting things. And then, as I was saying with the release channels, you can give access to those people who are going to test it for you. Does that answer the question?
No, sorry.
Who is that? Oh, back there.
I forgot to raise my hand again.
Yep. Okay, there we go. Good to go.
It's VR. We got to use our hands.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, I wanted to chime in a little bit on the testing front, just from my experience developing so far. I would say it depends on where you're at in development. So if you're in a phase where you're pre-alpha, which means your features aren't complete yet, you're still looking at prototyping features and all that stuff, the best way to get people to test your stuff is close friends or family. And that's the number one thing that I've done. That should be enough to get a range of people, even just one or two people that are just close to you. Because one, it's cost efficient. You just give it to the person you're with or you meet up with on a relatively frequent basis. I'd say after you get the features you want in and you're in an alpha stage, then you can look at expanding through your interactions on social media, or creating your own YouTube channel and probably having a following there, and then a Discord server. That way you can get even more people. But if you're starting out, your close friends, your family, your neighbor, I don't know. That's a good place to start.
That's a really good comment too. I did a little bit of that too. So I have some nieces and nephews that when they came over for like Thanksgiving or Christmas, and they asked, I told them about the app, and they asked to play it. So they've played the Falling Space Rocks, and they've played the Hidden Objects Tropical Island, and I just watch how they go through that, and I can see what happens when somebody who's not full adult height plays, and what happens in VR. When they get in there, like what, are they going to be able to reach the objects in the hidden objects? There might be some on the ground or some up in a tree, and can they reach those? And it's interesting to see that as well. And then there was somebody that I used to work with who took a job with Meta, and he lived near me. So I had him come over, and he tested for a while, and he gave me a whole bunch of suggestions, just features that he'd like to see or ideas. And I was able to, I decided to implement some of them. And I was really happy for that help. And also maybe you might see somebody do something that you never thought of that use case, or you never thought they'd do. Like in the shooter app, he managed to turn the gun around so that it was pointing to himself. And I'm like, oh gosh, I don't think I want to let them do that. So I put a grab, like a grab interactor. When they grab the gun, it automatically puts it in a certain position facing outward, and they're got a hold of it by the end that doesn't shoot, and that way that I don't know, nobody else will do that.
I tried doing that, by the way,
Oh, did you? Did you really?
and I wasn't able. So you fixed it. There you go.
Good. Yeah, good. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Anyone else have any thoughts or questions or any ideas? Barry,
Turn on my microphone. I just, early in the presentation, you mentioned that Meta had some restrictions about what you could do in terms of, I think you said that they restricted where else you could publish your world or your game?
No, they just don't want you to mention those other headsets or show them like in your trailer or in the verbiage that you upload. So you can deploy on multiple platforms.
Right.
You just have to follow it. It says exactly what they allow and what they don't allow. Okay. And I didn't see anything about attempting to make your app exclusive to their store.
Okay. That was the only thing I was concerned about. Thank you.
Yeah, I was talking to another developer about this before, and they published their trailer, their video trailer, and in their trailer they had a different headset on, and they flagged that, and they wouldn't publish his game until he put a new trailer in using their headset. So they're essentially just avoiding advertising non-Quest headsets.
They're going to have some problems coming up for sure.
Right?
Why do you say that?
Oh, because there's so many new headsets that are becoming, and
Okay. Sure,
and on different platforms and things that are supposed to be able to work with Meta's products, but I don't know if that's likely to happen.
Here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All
Lots
of
of
my
announcements.
movie was shot in the headset, so there was no place with a outside camera that was looking at me playing with any certain headset on. It was I just did it all in the VR world. But yeah, I've seen other trailers that actually show the person playing. Like Ian Lindsay's got the Plank app in there, and it shows somebody, putting on the headset and walking across her living room, and then it shows what it looks like to her, like she's walking out of a high building on a plank. So yeah, a lot of trailers might want to be shot. You might want to shoot the person playing, like if you're in the room with that person.
Do they have? Can you hear me?
Wayne,
Just
did you have a question?
just this little bit.
Yeah. Do they have restrictions on non-headset, like accessories, like haptic feedback stuff? Is there?
I didn't see anything that mentioned that. I did hear, this is kind of bizarre. I heard from somebody that if you're shooting in the room with the person shooting the trailer, that they don't like it if you don't have your wrist through the little rope thing that keeps you from throwing your controller across the room. They think that they don't want people modeling unsafe stuff or stuff that's going to wreck their headset. I didn't see any mention of the haptics. I think it's it'd be pretty exciting to use haptics on a lot of these VR games. So I think they'd want to encourage it, but like I said, I didn't see anything.
Yeah, sure. Until they come up with their own haptic kit.
Right. Maybe they'll come out with their own, and then they'll say, yeah, you can only use that one if they're going to show it in our store.
Cool. Thank you.
Hey.
Okay, this brings us to 1 o'clock for me, 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and the end of the official event. No one has to go anywhere, but I did want to just thank everyone for coming here. Thank Elisa for all of this awesome information, and I'll let you guys know that the recording and all of the slides will be available. So just keep a lookout on the VR Creator Club and the Banter Discord for those of you who aren't part of the club. Additionally, if any of you guys or your friends are working on something and would like to have a similar talk, please reach out to me. I really love showcasing like the deep knowledge and like the community that we're the VR community and what we're working on, because I think that a lot of us can learn from each other. And even if you're working on something that you think other people are more advanced than you would be surprised how much you know that other people don't know, because we all have our specialties. So please reach out and let's keep the conversation going. And thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, buddy.